Excellent. Okay, great. Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you for joining. And I really appreciate you coming today. I know that we're in the thick of spring semester. You probably just finished all your midterms. Going to get started on some papers maybe, but we have to think about fall. Isn't that crazy? I think it's crazy. And with the way this year has been, let's just hope that fall gets back to some semblance of normal. That's what we're really hoping for. But there's a lot of things that need to be done in order to get prepped for the next semester. So this today is about, making your to-do list. So please have a piece of paper out so that you can write down the things that we're talking about. And after we go through all the due dates for things, then we will also go through what's called a SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, which gives you an opportunity to kind of look at the semester and see what might you do next semester to get things going a little bit smoother. Okay, so let's start. So the first thing, the question, I know a lot of people probably have this question, so I thought right out of the gate, let's talk about it. Virtual or in person? So are we going to be virtual next fall or in person next fall? So the answer to that question is not definitive, but it is this. The chancellor's office and the school are intending to be in person. It is my understanding that all planning is being done to be in person. Like we should go back to the way it was before COVID. However, based on everything that's happened, they're also creating contingency plans. So I don't have a good answer for this question for you guys. Plan to be in person, but know that we might have to make some adjustments. And I really think that if by adjustments, from what I'm hearing, it might mean that not all classes will go back in person, but more than are in person now. Right now, I think it's about 5% of classes for things like the higher level science labs, some of the art classes, nursing, where you really can't do it without being in person. Those are all in person right now. So I'm hopeful that things can get back to the way they were before, but that's what they're planning. Okay. So does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, so you're always welcome to shoot an email. When we have more information, we'll share. But the plan is now we will be in person. Okay, that is everything looks good for that right now. We just don't want to hedge our bets because based on what's been happening. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to be giving you a list of things that you need to get done and dates that things are going to be due. So make a list of those dates. And when we're done today, put them into your calendar with notifications. So if you need to, make multiple notifications to remind yourself to get these certain tasks done. It's great to write them on a list, but get them somewhere where you're going to be reminded that they're coming up so that you make sure that you get it done. If you do a weekly calendar where you're putting out your study schedule and planning your study schedule, putting these tasks onto that calendar will further make sure that it gets done on time. So please use that tool to make sure things get done. So on April 8th at 2 p.m., which is just almost 2 weeks from today, we're going to be doing a diploma check workshop. And what that is the academic advising counselor is going to take you guys through CAR, which is the CI Academic Requirement Report. And so in CAR, you can see, based on your major, what classes you're supposed to take, what you have taken, and what you still have to take. And so it's a way to see progress towards graduation. It's also another tool to help plan your classes for next semester. If you would like to participate in the workshop, you can private message me here, or you can send an email to me or to Accommodations at CSUCI.edu, and we'll make sure that you get the Zoom link. That's going to be on a Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m. It will be recorded. So if you miss it, we will put a video up on our YouTube channel. Okay, so that's a good one, especially if you're around junior standing and you're not really sure where you're going next. That's a good way to get a good idea. Okay, even if you're a freshman though and you're just finishing up your first year, it's good to start using that tool because it's the best way to help see your progress towards graduation and to make sure that the classes you're taking are going to apply to your major. Coupled with that is right away, I would schedule an advising appointment. Okay, you want to do that in the next few weeks to meet with them. So I would go in there today and schedule your appointment if you have not already done it. The way that academic advising works now is you schedule your appointment, you tell them your major, and each of the counselors have majors that they specialize in. So they can sit down with you and say, oh, well, for this major, these are the classes you need. These are the electives you can choose from, things like that. And so the CAR is great, but if you're still not sure which classes to choose, then advising can help you. If you're new to the university, this is your first semester or your first time freshman back in fall, I would strongly recommend you meet with an academic advisor just to make sure everything's on track for you. Those appointments do fill up, so please do it today or Monday. On their website, they have a link to a program called Navigate. So you click on the link for Navigate and it allows you to schedule an appointment. So definitely get that done. Okay, so the next thing you're going to have to do is schedule your classes. You're going to have to figure out, what classes you need. You can't do that right now because the schedule of classes has not been released yet. My understanding is it will be released for sure by mid-April, maybe even by next week. And so when it's released, you want to be able to go in and have a look at your classes and see what's available, see when you're going to take the classes. Okay, hold on one second. I'm trying to do two things at once. I'm letting people in. Welcome, James and Nancy. I did record this, you guys, so if you want to go back and watch the beginning, it will be available in the recording. But so far right now, we're talking about getting prepped with your classes for next semester. So if you haven't already done so, please schedule an appointment with an academic advisor so you can choose your classes. And the schedule of classes, when it's released, it allows you to go in and you can see what classes are available, what times are available, and you can use the planner to come up with a schedule. Since we're assuming that we'll be back in person, the schedule will matter for your classes next semester, whereas you can't count on a lot of your classes being asynchronous. So it's really important to plan that out. And the cool thing is when you pick your classes, you can cart them as you're planning it. So you can put them in your cart, and once you have your schedule all set and ready to go, you put them in your cart. And then the day you register, you just go in and you click, submit, and you purchase your classes if they're all still open. So keep on the lookout. I would say around April 10th or April 15th, put a reminder on your calendar to go see if the schedule of classes is available yet, so you can start planning your schedule for next semester. Okay. Okay, so next week, they're going to be sending emails with your registration appointments. And based upon different factors, people get different appointments. If you are a DOS student with a permanent disability, you will have priority registration, which is at 8 a.m. on April 25th. And the DOS counselors will be sending an email reminding you that that's the date for a registration, and we will give instructions on how to check that you got that date. So please, when we send that email, look at it and use it to verify that you have the correct registration date. If the date comes and goes, there's nothing we can do to help if it wasn't set correctly to begin with. So we need you to check it, okay? Students with a temporary disability will have registration based on their class level. So the way registration dates are assigned is seniors have priority, and then juniors, sophomore, freshmen. So if you're a freshman, it's going to be harder to get some of the more advanced classes if they get full quickly. So for example, if you're a psychology major, those classes tend to fill up quickly because it's our biggest major at CI. So just do what you can, and that when you're choosing your classes, if you aren't going to get priority registration, or you're concerned about what you will or won't be able to get, then have a couple alternatives that you can stick into your schedule. That's really important. So make sure, like, end of next week, April 3rd, have a reminder on your calendar to check your registration date. And look for that. If you're a DOS student, look for the email from Ramon or myself asking you to verify your registration date, which will be April 26th. It is a little bit late this year, and that's just because they're still working out the schedule, but we'll get you going. Okay, so once you've registered for your classes, you can request your accommodations. And this is, of course, only if you're a DOS student. This can be done 24 hours after you register for your classes. I highly encourage you to, if you have priority registration on April 25th, then please put a reminder on your calendar shortly thereafter to go in and request your accommodations, just so it's done and you don't have to worry about it. If you really don't want to do it this semester, then, put a reminder on your calendar around August 10th and go in and do it. This is particularly important if you have the e-text accommodation, which is the accommodation where you're going to get your books digitally to help with reading. So with e-text, you need to send receipts to DOS. So the sooner you request your accommodations, the sooner they can work on getting the digital format of your materials for you, because sometimes it does take a couple of weeks for them to get it. If you're not sure how to request your accommodations, you can always come to our drop-in Zoom hours. It's 10 to 2 every day. Or you can email Ramon or I, and we will send you a video that gives instructions on how to do it. But please make sure you do this ahead of time so that everything is set in place and all the professors are notified before school begins. And from the get-go, you'll be good to go. So the other thing is if you have e-text, you want to send your receipts to Emily at the alternative.media@csuci.edu email. So, I would make sure that you put a reminder on your calendar to do that, early August. However, I know that some professors don't tell the students what books they need until the first week of school. So if that's the case, you can actually also email this email and say to Emily, my teacher hasn't published the book information yet. Do you have access to that? Sometimes she has it. You can also go to the bookstore and see if it's listed in the bookstore. But it's hard to set a date reminder from this because it is dependent on the professor giving you the textbook information. But if you check for it, let's say you check the 1st of August, you don't know what your books are, then set another reminder for 5 days later and then check again. And once you have your book information, you purchase your books, immediately send copies of the receipts. And it doesn't have to be a paper receipt. It could be, you got a confirmation email and that's your receipt showing that you have the book. send it to her as soon as you get it. And then that way they can work on getting it. Because it's not like they just have a library they pull from. They have about 20 different places that they get digital materials from. So sometimes it takes time for her to find your book in that format. Okay, so are you going to be living on campus in the fall? And we just had a meeting yesterday with housing, and they have not yet gotten guidance on what they're going to be able to do. So they're another area that they have multiple plans in place. Their hope is to return to regular housing, although it is possible that they won't be able to do as much as before. I think before they had 1,600 students in the dorms. It is possible they won't be able to have full capacity, but they are hopeful and planning that they will have a lot more than they have right now, which is, I believe, around 200. So if you are intending to live on campus in the fall, the priority deadline for applications for housing is May 21st, 2021. And this is very important because if you apply before May 21st, you get into the priority group for getting housing. If they have to limit housing, it's possible they won't have room for everybody. And so they have kind of a way they choose who gets into housing. For example, the first group is anybody who is housing insecure and won't, if they don't have housing on campus, they won't have another place to live. They would get first priority. Second priority is people who have on-campus classes because they need to be on campus in order to take classes. And then the third, and that might be somebody, let's say, who lives in Northern California and they don't live locally. So if they're not on campus, it's hard for them, obviously, to commute. And then they have, I believe the third tier it's basically a lottery system that everybody else gets put into a lottery and they draw out who could get housing accommodations. So if you get in by the priority deadline and you're in that lottery group, you have a higher probability of getting a spot than if you're after the priority deadline. So
Bonnie, I have a question on that. If that's okay. This is Angel.
Sure.
Are you saying that priority deadline? Are you saying that we should do that now?
Yeah, they haven't opened the application yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'm not sure when they're going to open it. That was something else they weren't able to tell us. But I would put a reminder on your calendar around April 20th.
Okay.
Okay, and check and see if it's there. Yeah, unfortunately, we always do this because we want you guys to have all the dates, but because of everything that's gone on this year, we're less exact because they're still juggling some things. And housing, for sure, they're dependent on what the health department tells them they can do, and they would like to go back to full capacity. But if the health department comes back and says, no, everybody has to have their own bedroom, then they'll be able to do more than they are now. But if they still come back and say everybody needs to have their own bathroom and bedroom, then it's not going to be too different than what we have now. So they don't know what the health department's going to say. So they're working on all plans. But yeah, definitely put a reminder to check. And, we'll make an effort. Feel free to always email us. If you're not sure and you can't find the information, just email us and we'll find out for you what the dates are. The other thing is, if you have accommodations in housings, for example, some people may be in a wheelchair and they may need a wheelchair accessible shower, or maybe somebody has an emotional support animal. And based on how housing ends up getting configured, some people may want a single room. And those are all accommodations that people apply for and get approved for. So if under normal housing circumstances, like if the dorms were full, everything was at capacity, if you feel like you need an accommodation, I encourage you to apply for the accommodations for housing. If you need a single room, that might be a moot point if the health department says everybody has to have a single room. But I would still apply for it. And so those are due May 3rd. And that's a priority deadline, meaning if you apply by May 3rd, that housing will be able to give you that accommodation. If you apply after May 3rd, based on space available, they may not be able to accommodate some of the accommodations, for example, like single room.
Bonnie, it's Angel again. So
yeah, sure.
In regards to the accommodations, those of us who have accommodations currently, do we have to resubmit the documentations that we did this year for next year?
Yeah, this is just for housing. So
right.
If you had accommodations for housing, you
yes.
would, yeah, every year we need the documentation for housing, and which is a little bit different than how we do academic accommodations. Academic accommodations, you only apply for one time.
Okay.
Yeah, but for housing, every year. And it has a lot to do with housing changes a lot. And for some of the accommodations for housing, they have limited availability. For example, wheelchair accessible showers is definitely limited, and they aren't required by law to provide accommodations to everybody who needs them in housing. It is on a first come, first serve basis, which is why I'm encouraging everybody to apply by May 3rd. The same with single rooms, because if a lot of people want single rooms, but they can't fill the dorm the way they need to because they've given out too many single rooms, then some students won't get housing. So they have a limited number of rooms that they could provide as a single room. So, but they do say if you get it in by May 3rd, then they should be able to provide the accommodation. So the move-in date for housing is August 20th. And, again, hopefully we'll be going back to pretty much business as usual. So that move-in day is usually a really fun day. I know last year it had to be staggered and everybody had to move in on their own. And so it was a little bit different. So hopefully we'll go back to something more like it used to be. Here's the URL for housing. So you guys can apply for housing. And so just remember, if you need accommodations, you want to go in there May 3rd. The housing accommodation application is separate from the actual housing application. The housing accommodation application comes into the DOS office. I'm one of the people who reviews them and approves them. Ramon does it with me. So that's a separate application than the actual housing application to say you want to live in the dorms. So if you need accommodations, there's 2 applications you have to fill out. Okay. If you don't need accommodations, you just need to get that housing application in by May 21st. Is that clear enough? I know it's kind of confusing. Housing's a little bit confusing. No questions? Okay. So another thing that's important to consider is equipment checkout. So equipment is available on a first come, first serve basis. So if you need a laptop or a hotspot in fall, you want to make sure that you reserve it at the library. And I know this last year they ran out of hotspots, so you really want to get in there as soon as possible if you need that. If you live in Ventura County, you would pick it up at the library. They do curbside pickup where you drive up and you give them a call and they bring it out to your car. If you live outside Ventura County, they will ship it to you if for some reason we're not doing in-person classes. Okay. So I just want you guys to be prepared. If you feel like you need equipment, please put a reminder on your calendar around August 20th, right before school starts, so you can reserve that equipment and get it when you need it. If at any time during this semester something happens to your equipment, like I had a student who had a laptop that stopped working and had to go in for repair, and the student thankfully, all the students' content was in the cloud, and the student was able to check out a laptop from the library and keep doing schoolwork. But if at any time, if there's a problem with your internet and you need a hotspot, reach out to the library. They did get funding for more hotspots. I think they still have some available now. They have a lot of laptops available. So if you feel like there's something wrong with your computer and it's not behaving properly, it breaks, or maybe you're going to go somewhere on vacation that doesn't have internet and you need a hotspot, reach out to the library. This is free, and it's easy to get. Okay. Okay, so those are all the dates that I had to share. I don't know if anybody can think of any. I don't know if anybody has any other questions or any other dates to offer. Just let me know.
Is there any information about summer classes?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Monique.
Summer classes?
Summer classes. Oh, thank you. So summer classes registration actually opens on Monday, and it is done through Extended University. Thank you. That's a good idea. I'll add that next time we do the presentation. So summer classes are done through Extended University. If you need to use financial aid to pay for summer classes, know that sometimes that can be tricky if you don't have any financial aid left over, because financial aid is rewarded for spring and for fall. And so you really want to talk to them ahead of time about coordinating your financial aid, because sometimes students have to pay for summer and then they get reimbursed once the whole FAFSA thing gets approved for fall. So so go to Extended University. It's done through a different process. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Sure, no problem. And Nancy was asking about returning your recorder. So that's a DOS thing. If you checked out a recorder so you could use Note-Taking Express, then definitely, that's a good question. So, and I think that you would ship it back to us, but I don't have an answer for you right off the bat, Nancy, so I will get one for you after we're done with this. Remind me, and I will get an answer before we hang up. I believe that you would ship it back to us if you're not local. If you're local, we can arrange for you to drop it off. I just sent a message to IROM. It's another good question. Oh, good. Okay, so if you're local, Nancy, what you can do is email the accommodations at CSUCI email, and you can ask IROM. She looks at that email, and ask her where to either send it or how you could coordinate a drop off of the recorder. No. Anybody else? Any more questions just with regards to dates or things that you need to do to get ready to close out this semester or for fall semester? Oh, okay, cool. Okay, so now we're going to do the SWOT analysis. So I don't know if any of you guys have ever done this. This concept of a SWOT analysis comes from the business world. And I see a couple of you have private messaged me, and I will answer you once I turn off the recording, because if I open the message box, it's going to make a big white box on my recording. So when I'm done, I will send you a message. Thank you. Okay, so SWOT analysis. This comes from the business world. In the business world, they use a SWOT analysis to determine directions for a business. And what it is it's looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we can use it for anything that we're trying to analyze to figure out how to move forward or what needs to be changed. So we're going to use it to look at spring semester and maybe fall semester and determine, what has been challenging, what has been good, and maybe where you can make some changes to make it better for next semester. So I encourage you to get out a piece of paper and take some time. We're going to go through this exercise. Just take some time to think about it and maybe even share some of the things so the other people can get some ideas of where they might be looking at each of these categories. So our first category is strengths. So what skills or resources do you have to support you in school? So make a list of your strengths. Here's some examples. You're well organized. Maybe you have supported family or supported friends, or maybe you have a good study group. Maybe you have a great study place where you're not getting distracted so you can really focus. Think about what things really support you in school and give you, make it easier for you to do school. I'm going to give you a minute just to write that down. Okay, so the second thing after we look at strengths is we want to look at weaknesses. And I know this is not always an easy area to look at, but really, what areas do you really struggle with in school? And weaknesses could include a disability and maybe not. Maybe you have learned how to accommodate in a way that it's not such a struggle as much as it used to be. Also looking at, what was difficult in spring 2021. And this is especially true if you're transferred into the university this semester and maybe we're doing things differently than your community college, or the virtual classes, understanding. I've had some students say virtual classes are awesome because I can watch the videos over and over and that's what I really needed. I've had more students say virtual classes are a disaster because I just can't seem to keep everything organized. The professors, it took a long time for the professors to really use Canvas in a way that it was organized. Not all professors, of course, but a lot. And so maybe that made it difficult. So look at what the weaknesses are that may have hampered your ability to be successful in school. Here's some examples: difficulty with organization, hard to focus, not good with technology, issues understanding assignments, unable to connect with classmates. So make a list of weaknesses. What are things that really made it more difficult? And if anybody wants to share, you don't have to. This is a harder one to admit. I mean, for me, I work at home, and a weakness for me is my kids are doing virtual school. And my husband started substituting. He got vaccinated, so he's like, "No, I can go." And he's been substituting, and so I had to take over virtual school with my kids, which not a big deal, right? Well, you know what? You could not believe how many technical issues. Well, maybe you could because you're going through it. But so many times I've had to go help them with technical issues, or they're trying to get an assignment done and they have questions. I don't understand the question that the teacher's asking me. And it's been amazing to me how distracting that is, trying to help them, where I had to set up times. Okay, you need to hold your questions, and at this time to this time, you can come have office hours with mom. So that definitely impaired my ability to focus on work. And I had to inform my team, sometimes if I don't answer, I might be trying to figure out why my kid's Chromebook won't boot up or something. So that's an example of a weakness. It's not something I could really control, but I have to find a way around it. Okay.
For me personally, though I stay organized, I do find myself that I procrastinate. So even though I know I have an assignment due Sunday and it's the beginning of the week, there's times I'll wait till Sunday morning. And I mean, I still have enough time to finish it, but the thing is, I waited till that day to complete it.
So we did a whole workshop on procrastination. I think we're going to do another one in a few weeks. The crux of the issue with procrastination is often trying to avoid the feelings you have when doing whatever you're procrastinating. So it sounds to me like you really don't like doing those assignments.
Oh, I get anxiety. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of times the procrastination is because you're avoiding that. And so the key is to say, this makes me really anxious. I hate doing it. Like to verbalize the feelings that you're trying to avoid, and then to basically come up with a plan where you do it in little bits. So you'll say, okay, I'm going to do this piece on Monday and this piece on Wednesday and this piece on Friday, and so just kind of do it in little bits instead of the thought of having to endure hours and hours of having that feeling. Does that make sense?
Once I get started, I don't have a problem. Like it doesn't like I flow fine. And it takes me a little bit longer just because of my disability. But I think a lot of it is just like the ability to connect with the material. I think I feel anxious. Like, am I going to understand what the professor is wanting? Because sometimes when it's just written,
yeah,
it doesn't really, there's, oh, well, I expected this or wanted this, but I don't know, you didn't put it in the actual written assignment. So, there's times where I feel that anxiety, like, okay, am I going to do what's asked of this assignment?
Yeah. And you know what you can do is you can go on a direction with an assignment ahead of time and then email the professor and say, this is the direction I'm going. Did I understand correctly what you're asking? And a lot of the professors will give you feedback. So that might be a way to help alleviate that anxiety. Yeah. I know it's hard. Yeah. Also, the Writing Center, they're a really good resource for things like that because they know a lot of the professors and they have helped so many students with assignments that a lot of times they can say, oh, yeah, I've seen this before and this is how the professor likes it. So the Writing Center is another good way to do that. But yeah, procrastination can be really tricky. Anybody else with weaknesses? Okay, so the next thing we want to look at is, I'm sorry, go ahead. James?
I was about to say regarding to weakness, how I tend to get easily distracted by things.
Mm-hmm. That's a common one, especially now with virtual school when everybody is usually in their bedroom or they might be in like the family room. And one of my kids, I found out one of my kids, he was getting really disorganized and it turned out he was playing games on his phone during his classes. And it's like we had to make a rule that he had to leave, take the phone and leave it outside his room while he was in class.
I've been there.
Yeah, it's hard. I know it's hard. I know.
Yeah. Also, and speaking of which, I also have to make sure to keep up with notes since for some reason I don't think to simply print out the slides and write down whatever annotations were made in the class. I try to write them out by hand, mostly because I figure those would help me memorize them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, getting notes together and having a system for that. And if you want to talk about that, we can talk about coming up with a system for that. Systems are really important. So opportunities. What kind of opportunities could you have taken advantage of that may, have made things go smoother for you? An example, I did have a student email me the other day who said, I finally reached out to my professor and I didn't realize I probably should have been doing that all along because now I feel like I really understand what the professor's looking for. And so understanding that maybe going to office hours, I know some of you here have shared that you go to office hours and you ask a lot of questions of the professors for those who don't do that, maybe that's an opportunity to get clarity and to connect with the professors and get a better understanding of, kind of where they're coming from. It will help. Tutoring centers. Oftentimes I have students who won't go to tutoring until it gets hard and maybe they failed their first exam or something, and then they go to tutoring. And I say to students, like, if you know that statistics is going to be hard for you, start going to tutoring right from the minute they open. They usually open second or third week of school. Go to tutoring. You can do it virtually now. Ask them to check your homework. Get to know the tutors. Get to know the system. So that way you kind of stay ahead of the game. And if you do that and you do struggle, then it's easier to say, hey, I need more help with this thing. So if you know there's a subject you're going to struggle with, make tutoring part of your schedule and go every week, maybe twice a week. Going to the professor office hours, creating a regular study group. I know some students have shared really fabulous stories of creating study groups. And some students have shared, I can't seem to connect with my classmates. It has a lot to do with what's turned on in Canvas and whether or not you can message classmates. Ask for help sooner in the semester. I often will have students around the 10th to 13th week will come in and they're failing a class and haven't reached out for help, and just now reaching out for help when it's going to be very difficult to recover the grade. So the minute something's difficult, the minute you don't get a grade that you were hoping for, that's the time to ask for help. And help may be reaching out. If you're a DOS student, reach out to Ramon or myself and just say, I don't even know where to get help. Can you help me figure that out? And that's okay. We'll absolutely help you figure that out. Making a project plan. If you don't have a list of what you need to do to get a project accomplished, that can make it more difficult to get it done. So that's an opportunity. Monique said she took spring break as an opportunity to stay ahead of assignments. That's great. I'm sure you're a lot more relaxed this week, knowing that you don't have to jump in and work on a lot more stuff. Yeah. So what works for you and what could you have done to make the semester go smoother? That's where the opportunities are. I found that students who reach out for help and really implement strategies to get help do extremely well in school. They may not get straight A's, but in classes where they felt like it was going to be going the wrong way, they turn it around. And I have some students that I'm so impressed with their resourcefulness in reaching out for help. And they're really great at self-advocating and just saying, I need somebody to help me figure out how to get a solution in this area. So can anybody think of any other opportunities that might be helpful? No? Okay. So the last thing we want to think about are threats. And threats are things that really make it very difficult to do school. It's a little bit different than a weakness. A weakness is often something that you can fix. A threat is something that is kind of out of your control, but it's something you still have to face. So a noisy home environment. Some people have a lot of people in their home. They don't have a quiet place to do their schoolwork because you can't go to the library. That before COVID, they went to the library all the time. Well, they can't do that now. So it's very difficult to focus in a noisy home environment. Maybe you live in one of the areas where they keep turning off the electricity because there's the winds and the threat of fire. And then without electricity, we have no internet connection. And so if that happens to you, check out a hotspot from the library, because you don't need electricity to run that hotspot. But that's definitely a threat, because how are you going to do your schoolwork? We had an internet outage a couple of weeks ago, one of my kids' teachers marked him absent, even though he messaged the teacher on his phone and said, I can't get on to class because I have no internet, and he marked him absent. And it's like, that's not fair. You know, when he didn't have internet connection. So it can really impair the ability just to participate.
I had a professor where I was taking a quiz and it kicked me out. And I emailed her telling her it only let me answer one question. She just responded like, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it.
Oh, that was good. That was nice. Oh, good. If ever that happens to anybody.
Because I'm missing those points. She didn't allow me to make them up.
What do you mean? She didn't let you back in to finish the exam?
Yeah, she just said, don't worry about it.
Oh, no, that's not good. Send me an email about that. Let me help you.
Okay, I actually have the email that I have with her too for it. So.
Okay, yeah, send me an email. Let's sort that out. No, she should be, if that happens, she should reopen the exam. It may not be me sorting it out because it's not disability related, but I'll figure out who can help you with that, okay? Because that's not appropriate. If you get kicked out for technology reasons, you should be able to go back in and finish it. Yeah. Anytime you guys have anything like that, even if it's not disability related, you can ask us, you know, and we'll help you figure out who on campus can help you sort it out. Another thing, I have a lot of students where that because the student is home, the family expects them to use their time for other things. I actually had a student who the mom kept saying, I don't understand why you have to study so much. And the student, you know, is biology major. And I said, I know why she has to study so much because those are hard classes. These, you know, your family may want you to help with cooking or cleaning or watching kids or taking care of animals or just social time. You know, hey, hang out with me. Let's have fun. I don't understand why you're so busy. So that can be really difficult. And so talking to somebody, you know, that's a great opportunity to go to CAPS, talk to the therapist. They can help you find some solutions for how do you talk to your family to help them understand why you have to focus on school. Can anybody think of other threats that might interfere with their ability to be successful at school?
Well, recently my apartment complex has been doing some major renovations, and they're currently doing it above my apartment, and it's really noisy and really bugs me.
Oh, that would be awful. Yeah, that would be awful. The only thing I could suggest
Yeah,
is,
and they're
oh, go ahead.
oh no, and it's gonna be going on for like a few more months.
Yeah, what county
So
do
it's
you
gonna
live in?
be hard.
Are you in Ventura County?
Santa Barbara.
Santa Barbara.
No, Santa Barbara.
So they have opened outdoor seating at the coffee shops now. So you could go to a coffee shop.
Oh yeah, no, that won't work for me because the sun really bugs me, and then I can't see my screen.
Oh, okay.
I tried it before. It didn't work out.
Yeah, so another alternative there is just get some earplugs. Like that's a tough one. That would be hard. Yeah, that kind of noise is hard to deal with. But yeah, I mean I don't know if the library is open yet. I don't know if the library is letting people come in yet. I know down here in Ventura, we are all, believe it or not, in Ventura County, we're almost in the orange tier. Did you guys know that? We are so close to being in the orange tier, which would be amazing. And then I think they'll open the libraries. So, and I know Santa Barbara's better off than we are. So, yeah, that's a tough one. Sorry. Anybody else have any threats, things they can't control? Okay.
My kids.
Yes. Well, yeah, control loosely used when it comes to parenting. Yeah, I get that.
Especially when you're telling them like, okay, I'm gonna be on, you know, be quiet. And they're like, okay. And then what's the next thing they do? Oh my goodness, I hear yelling and playing and oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I know my kids do that too. They'll be playing video games together and they're screaming and I have to go out. I'm recording my session.
Yeah, when you got older ones, it's almost harder because they're, you know, like my older one, he plays video games and he has a headset on and they don't hear you.
Well, yeah, and then both mine are teens, and so they have that deep voice too, and it's pretty, yeah, it's funny. One of them, Ventura County is starting to open schools up, so one of mine's going to be doing a little bit of in-person school. I think that's going to be
Mine starts on the 12th.
Yeah, that's what mine too. Yeah, slowly but surely get back to normal. Okay. So the purpose of the SWOT really is to help you find solutions. You know, you get what's working great, but then you also can start to see what isn't working. And that's when you seek out resources. You know, maybe your friends have ideas. You can ask faculty, you can ask staff. And then you want to create a to-do list about how to overcome the things that are difficult. You know, getting your kids back to school would be a great way to solve that problem, wouldn't it? You know, and some of those solutions aren't within our control, and that's kind of a challenge. So what else can be done? And you know, sometimes you're not going to be able to solve the problem, and recognizing that it's going to hamper your ability, maybe your schedule changes to avoid the problem. And I know for me, I oftentimes when my kids were younger and I was in graduate school, I often did my homework late at night because that's when everything was quiet, and that was my best way of getting stuff done. Okay. So just want to share some upcoming events. So next Friday, Ramon and Jake from the Career Center they're going to be doing a workshop on how to prep for the spring 2021 career fair. That's a great opportunity if you're looking for internship, or even if you just want to come check out companies that are hiring and practice talking to them. It's really a good opportunity to start building those job skills. As I mentioned earlier, on April 8th at 2 p.m. on that afternoon, we're going to do the car workshop, so you can do a diploma check and figure out how far along you are. And then on Friday, April 9th, we're going to do an Among Us game with the Diverse Dolphins. That'll be totally fun, just from 3 to 4:30 p.m. I have no clue how to play this game, so just self-disclosure, my son will be my surrogate. I will watch him play for me, but I'll be there.
Don't worry, the rules are pretty simple. I
Yeah.
played a couple games.
Okay. So I'm not big on video games. It's just not my thing, but my 14-year-old is going to play for me. So that'd be
My 8-year-old plays that game.
Oh, really? So maybe he could
Yeah,
play for
he
you.
had for his 8th birthday. That's what it was, an Among Us birthday.
Oh, that's cool. My son hasn't even ever played the game, but he's like, oh yeah, I've seen videos about it. It should be easy. But yeah, I hope you guys will come join, and it'll be fun. It's just totally fun just to have a laugh and an opportunity to get together. And you know, the Diverse Dolphins is just a place to hang out and be social. It's not meant to be anything formal. Down the line, we did have the event a few weeks ago to talk about what happened in Oxnard. And down the line, we may do more events like that. But right now, it's really just a place to come and be able to feel safe chatting with people, knowing that everybody's really accepting, and it's just gonna be fun. So I hope you guys will come to that. We do have a YouTube channel that has all our recordings. So please come and check it out, and you can subscribe to it so you'll be notified every time we upload a new video. So, and this is, if you wanted to go look at that procrastination workshop I talked about, it's definitely up there. Okay, so do we have any questions? I'm going to stop the recording now.